So I live in the countryside most of the time, and so I know a bit about plants. I grow vegetables, so I'm observing climate change. I'm trying to offer survival training to people, and yeah, various events. This one is on Hampstead Heath. I like to hang out in human sanctuaries. Hampstead Heath was actually the place that London came from. It's not a park that was created as a response to London urbanisation. It was actually because of the geology. It's clay covered with sand and gravel. It's a very kind of ideal spot for humans to spend either all of their time or part of their time, and to be able to migrate down to damper and environments to gather water, or go down to the Thames to fish. So it's more of a, Hampstead's more of a monument of our kind of hunter-gatherer kind of semi-hunter-gatherer lifestyles. I do this in the Avon Gorge as well. Let's see if we can find my profile page here. Let's go down the bottom. So you see it's got all these kind of pictures. It's an offering to people come along and pay some money and walk around with me. We eat some stuff. It's quite prescriptive, the Hampstead Heath. You're not allowed to pick any leaf or flower, for instance, because Hampstead Heath has its own police force who will arrest you. So at the moment, I'm offering these, kind of trying to be quite honest and real. You know, I will tell people about the plants and the uses. We'll walk around together in a kind of indigenous fashion. But then I'm also doing parallel marketing. So when I do one of these events, I will also, on the same time in the same location, I will offer something else. And the thing that I'm offering at the moment is kind of AI generated experience. So at the same time, I'm offering real survival techniques for the real climate emergency. So how to live in caves, what food to eat, how you can wash yourself, how to make fires, how to basically find these kind of sanctuaries. I'm also offering AI generated events for people. In this case, it's Chinese fashion students, art and fashion students, but also children who, because of they have a very strong imagination about the environment. So if you imagine you're British and you go to China or Australia, you'll predominantly be navigating the environment through your fantasy, because you won't have a direct experience, you won't have multi-generational knowledge of that. Also, as a child, children, that's how they navigate. The real world is certainly very young. Like my kids are 7. I take them on my survival training, and they're looking for kind of fantasy animals in the bushes still, you know. So the only real image, I'm going to replace this one, is the meeting place. That's the Everyman Theatre. And then you get to this kind of AI-generated landscape that Google offers of Hampstead Heath. And then I've started to add these other images. This is from chance. After a few iterations of doing real kind of foraging events at Hampstead Heath, most of my participants were young Chinese female art and fashion students. So it became apparent that the marketing algorithm was targeting these people. So I thought I'd include images in the offering. I generally don't do documentation of the events because it distracts me from what I should be doing, which is kind of engaging with the people and kind of providing information. So AI is solving that problem because I can just generate fictitious people and fictitious landscapes. Here you have a AI-generated parakeet, and then just some more imagery. In contrast, did I show you the? Yeah, I showed you the other one, the actual. So yeah, as I said, this is parallel marketing. One's AI generated. Some of it is within my control, but the most important part of it, the marketing part, is completely out of my control.
What do you use the AI generate?
What do I use?
What do you use the AI generate?
Just Madge Space, just a free one, first one I found.
Has people, do you know if people have realised that these are AI generated? Or have you
No
had
one's
questions about that?
no one's commented on it.
Okay.
No one's commented on it. And also, at the moment, I'm not getting any bookings on these events.
Okay.
Yeah. So by acknowledging the algorithm and algorithmic side of it and responding to it, I'm not getting any bookings on this now. But on the actual the primary event, I'm getting bookings. But by responding to it and with kind of quite provocative. Well, actually, these are quite realistic representations of what actually happens. So, for me, this is the interesting part, is that the portrayal, representation of the reality of plants, and also the actual interaction with plants, is not necessarily what people want. They have an imaginary world about the forest. Obviously, this is like millennia old, and also about survival. So it's not just the climate change deniers, the kind of branded ones. I'd say it's the general population that have a fantasy understanding about climate change and nature in general and the wild. So I guess I'm working in those kinds of areas now. So I actually do take people out, and we do eat fungi and things, and leaves and plants. But the first thing I do is always trying to find out what people are expecting and what they would like to happen. So for instance, I offered a wild food walk in Bristol, and the only two people that came were two Chinese fashion students from London. And so I said, okay, we're going to go for a walk now. And also when I'm working with small numbers of females, I'm very cautious about just taking them off path. So I said, okay, we're going to just go to this open parkland here, and we're going to look at some of the food offerings at the moment. And pretty soon they said, no, we're not interested in food, even though this is a foraging walk. We want a wild walk. So I said, okay, we'll go down this avenue. And after 5 minutes or something, they got very frustrated, and they said, this isn't wild at all. We came all the way from London for a wild walk, which wasn't offering. And I said, okay, I'll take you down into the Avon Gorge, and I can give you a 2-kilometre tour of all of the escarpments and caves. And it's going to take 2 or 3 hours. And they were like, great. Yeah. And they were immaculately dressed in all these kind of brands that I would never be able to recognise. And yeah, so we went on this walk, and quite soon they stopped. They would find things. They'd ask me to explain what they were, and then they got sample bags out, and they would take samples of twigs and leaves and all sorts of things. And the most interesting part was when a peregrine falcon had just killed a crow, and so it's still warm and just lying on the ground. And come across it, and I explained what type of bird had killed this, and so they decided to take that as well. So the crows are quite big. They had a range of Ziploc bags, and they put the whole crow, freshly killed, in the bag and put it in their kind of handbag kind of thing. You know, let's imagine it's a Gucci or something. I don't know. I don't even know. Gucci make handbags, or their shoes, aren't they?
Not with crows in them.
Yeah, and then and the crescendo or the finale was we were just ending the walk, and then there were these rutting goats that are there in the gorge to control the trees, so that the protected Bristol cress can thrive, and they were fighting above us, above a cliff, and dislodging rocks, and I was saying be careful, and they were taking video of this, because these are kind of mountain goats. They were going up and down these cliff faces and hitting each other's heads, and it's like this perfect kind of nature experience. And at that moment, my partner called me, and I had to explain to her how to fix Minecraft, because the password had gone wrong. So I was on the phone talking about Minecraft for my children, so they can play it whilst dodging rocks, while entertaining these Chinese fashion students. And that was quite an extreme experience for me. And I have quite an extreme life, you know, and it was quite inspiring. So I then had to think about what just happened, and these people obviously came with a completely different idea of what I was offering, and had a kind of very dispossessed, detached understanding of the British kind of ecosystem, which is understandable because they're from China. You know, there are some commonalities, like there's the wood ear fungus. Do anybody know the wood ear fungus? It's like a fungus that grows on trees. It just looks like an ear. And not many people in this country know that, but it's just a staple in China. You go to any Asian supermarket and you buy bags of dried ones. So there are some crossovers, as well as hawthorn. You can buy cultivar hawthorn sweets in Chinese Asian supermarkets, and we have hawthorn all around. But mostly there's not that much crossover with the ecosystem. So they came with a kind of from my experience, my perspective is kind of fantasy to explore this fantasy landscape. And of course, we all have that to some degree. Even the native population here, they come with they want the restaurateurs, and they. Am I doing for time? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The restaurateurs, they want have these novel kind of taste experiences, or people are expecting like a zombie apocalypse because of climate change. But with my experience with the fashion students, it was the kind of extreme. So I'm now kind of using this kind of AI visualization to somehow imagine or fantasize these scenarios. I'm also equally doing that with kids' survival activities, who actually are a bit more extreme with their fantasies. But I guess that's what I'm up to at the moment. It's no conclusion really, and it's still in development.
Can I ask if you had to give your work a genre?
Wonder.
Are you a surrealist?
But these are a little bit surrealist, aren't they?
How do you think of taking this forward? By learning from this experience? Because obviously it will be dependent on cultures and backgrounds. So would you tailor it to the specific background?
Well, China is my strategic market, but I'm not. I don't have any illusion of that I've ever been invited to China. You know, that envelope has passed. So there's 50,000 Chinese students in the UK. So I see that my only opportunity to kind of engage with the Chinese market is to be like a service provider for Chinese students in the UK. So I'd like to be able to sell 10 or 20 tickets for these events a week for Chinese students, and equal amount for other nationalities. Just to have a stable income, as an artist.
Do you, do you take this as like, I see a lot of humour in this, especially like, we've got a picture of parakeet and, like faces melting and things.
Yeah.
Is that something that you consciously think about? Is it kind of bordering on an entertainment aspect for you, or humour in your art? Or are you...
I'm trying to reveal,
artistic,
I don't want it to be like a very smooth, opaque, there has to be some transparency in how it's produced and my motivations. So humour is a way to do that. Also, it's fun, it's... most of the people who turn up at my events are very interesting. Like yesterday, everybody was very interesting. I was thinking I'll register my events with TripAdvisor, and who's gonna come from TripAdvisor to my events? So yeah, it's a celebration. It's a celebration of being outside and a group, doing things that are timeless, like making fires, eating food. But then there's this kind of
how is that different from just doing a tour of the National Organization of Ornithology, for example? Like, how is it different? What makes it art?
Well, what makes it art is that I'm an artist, and I've been subjected to the consequences of following rigorous artistic practice, and as a result, I'm almost invisible. And so working on Eventbrite is one of my only exhibited opportunities now. Also Twitter, I've recently gone onto Twitter thanks to Elon Musk rescinding the censorship, so I actually can publish my work on there. So yeah, I'd say an event like this and Eventbrite and Twitter are my only opportunities as a censored artist, somebody that's pursued the truth for 35 years. And
is this why you're targeting the Chinese market, because it's highly censored, or is that just subconscious?
Chinese market is because China is the biggest economic nation in the world now.
And I'm kind of relating to your own personal lived experience as well, isn't it?
Can you say that again?
In a way, well, it relates to your personal experience as well, as you were saying, about being censored. So do you think that that's kind of a way to...
Well, of course, that is a discussion that sometimes takes place with Chinese students, especially the ones that decide to remain in the UK, because they don't feel comfortable with going back home. But most people who come to my events don't know that I'm an artist. So it's a few people do though, so I engage with that.
Heath, I was curious about this sort of idea of marketing through the algorithm and the sort of creative fantasy that the algorithm synthesizes.
Yeah.
And how sort of you have created this sort of hybrid space through your interest in real spaces, and how real people outside of art discourses engage with space, but also how the fantasy of the AI, as in this sort of synthetic imaginary that it creates through this sort of reproduction of images and appropriation from a sort of realm of resources that a single human mind wouldn't have access through,
Yeah.
how that imposes itself on subjectivity through this sort of marketing appeal, the appetites, the desires it sort of appeals to, and how that sort of imposes itself on the subjectivity of individuals. I've been seeing that a lot in terms of working with my art students, these young people who are kind of on the cusp of childhood. So
Mm.
they still have this incredible, fantastical
Yeah.
impressionability, ability to adapt, and at the same time they're so their subjectivities are super flexible, but at the same time they have this sort of like deviant art algorithm that is imposed on them as to what, you know, art should look like, or whatever other imaginary they have. And that could be about nature, you know, it depends on what they're interested in. So I was wondering how you think about that in your own work when you know, have the algorithm imposed on your subjectivity, how you deal with that. I know you've talked to Salt, my husband, quite a lot about that, but I was just kind of curious about how that...
Well, I think at the moment there is a parallel between childhood and visitors' understanding of the British landscape and AI. Yeah, as AI. Well, what I can't think. I'm not very literate with AI at the moment, but let's say computer-generated generative imagery or something like that. It's in a child phase, which parallels actual infants and also recent immigrants. So I think it's timely to use that. I think we're in a phase of objectivity now. Has anybody noticed that you want to make a choice, but whatever you choose, it's the same outcome? Well, you can look at that as politics, whether it's Labour, Conservative, or whether you're a victim or a villain. Particularly now, like on Coronation Day, we're witnessing an abundance of imperial narcissism. So are we victims of that, or are we perpetrators? If we are to also with climate collapse, you know, the supreme narcissist fantasy is to take everyone else with you when you die. But also there is that understanding that if we are the last generation and we are everything is going to die with us, then actually that's not a disaster, that's actually a great privilege, because you actually have all the wisdom of your species that you could ever have, and you have the opportunity for enlightenment in that moment of demise. And you see there's both positions there. So that would be, it's the illusion of subjectivity, where you have this complexity and this kind of choice and this fluidity, but in reality, it doesn't matter whether you are a narcissistic abuser or a narcissistic victim, whether you're the elite who are building bunkers or spaceships and going to Mars, or whether you're peasants or neo-peasants like myself, who's trying to build like a North Devon crofting culture, but all my crops are failing. It doesn't matter whether you're one or the other, you're still all going to die. Yeah? So I'd say subjectivity is just an illusion, and what we are in is a new brutal objective reality, and the best you can hope for is the least damage. Has anyone been watching the the graphs for temperature recently? Like, the climate change has gone exponential over the past couple of months. Runaway climate change is kicked in now. So.
How does that impact, that is such a bleak outlook, which I think is also probably very much grounded in the objective. How does that impact you? You're talking about being the last generation, and you're a father. How does that impact your
Well, I have a daily
futuring?
struggle. Yeah, I have a daily struggle, and it's my primary intention is to keep my children alive as long as possible. So. But as I say, that you can see that you're in this situation, paradoxical. I did this whole thing with like this kind of. It's called a status project, but the last output was looking at paradox as the face of, and paradox as the repository. A paradox is the embodiment of knowledge. When you get to a position where things refer to themselves, you've gone as far as you can. And now I think we are most of us in every part of our life is mostly paradoxical. As I said, whatever you do, it results in the same outcome. So part of me thinks, yeah, it's a great privilege to be, like, who would want to live in the Middle Ages, the Dark Ages, the mythical Dark Ages? Who would want to live as a dinosaur or whatever? Or do you want to be part of the last generation, the most evolved, the most knowledgeable generation? Yes, of course you would, but also you don't want to die and suffer through starvation and have your children die within your lifetime, you know. But you don't have any choice. You're just thinking about it in a different way. But the material reality is incontrovertible. Yeah. So, for instance, I have 5 plots of land, and only one of them is productive at the moment. Last year I had 5 plots of land and 4 were productive. So spring is 5 or 6 weeks late, and we may not even get to summer. We may just go to a heat wave. So I don't have any food to eat from my land at the moment. And last year I had an abundance. So I can think about that in all different ways. And for instance, as a grower, how are we doing for time?
1 minute or so.
Yeah, 1 minute. There's a guy that has 12 allotments, and he manages them in all the different methods you can, all the different ideological processes. And his conclusion is that the primary product from all of these pieces of land is the ideology, because the crops, the weight of the crops, the kind of output is identical. So what you're doing is just reproducing your ideology. And I think I've reached a similar position now. Whatever you do, it doesn't really matter. You can get stuck in reproducing your ideology. It doesn't have any material effect anymore. Or you can let go of that. You realise that ideology is just kind of waste of time. It's fun. You know, having 12 plots of land and managed in all different ways, no dig and intensive and whatever. It's interesting, but it's not actually going to make any material change to your life. So this work is somewhere in here. It's like, I'm after these people's money. I'm after like a convivial, social experience in landscape, educating these people. These people come with expertise as well, and they educate me. But then to reach these people, I have to use this generative imagery or subject myself to this algorithmic marketing.
I've got a really, really quick question.
Do it,
Sorry.
do it.
I've got very limited knowledge on activism, but do you think that, through your statement that you just said, whatever you do doesn't really matter, do you think that is a product of your experience as an activist? Have you come to that conclusion through, not making the change?
Oh, you can change. You can be effective. See, for instance, the MOD tried to recruit me in 2012, I think it was, and they stated that their global primary adversary are artists. It's not jihadists, it's not Russia, it's not anything like that. They may have updated but there's been no indication they declassified artists as their primary global adversary. And their stated reason was because artists, 2 reasons. One, because artists could imagine another reality, and 2 is that they created the most effective resistance strategies. So being an artist is incredibly powerful. If you think about all the peoples that get repressed, it's only the powerful people that get repressed. For instance, women. Why do we have patriarchy? It's to keep women in check. Yeah, it's because women are very powerful. They're the only people that can reproduce the human species. And it's the same with artists. Why are artists always told that we're just like, a luxury, and we should be grateful for funding and things like that? It's because we're actually very influential, very powerful, and actually the military fear us. So, but the military don't. The military aren't in control. They don't have they're in crisis as well. So there's this kind of like scramble to keep have the last crumbs on the table. Now, is that power? It's not. It's best just to exit that whole kind of conflict. So, again, I'm mixed. I think artists are very powerful, activists are very powerful, but you're not powerful or effective if you're fighting over a world that doesn't exist anymore. You're only effective if you can create that new world or find it or be part of that. So that's what I'm doing. I'm growing vegetables. But even that is failing.
For now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very